I know, you are, but what am I? Asked the man who started a world war over his own insecurities.
I want to ask you a simple question. Have you ever read something so stupid that your brain physically hurt? Not like a headache, more like your neurons looked at each other, shrugged, and started packing their bags for a nice commune in Vermont where they don't have to deal with this anymore. That's what happened to me yesterday when I opened my comments section, which, as my brilliant editor Lily constantly reminds me, is like checking your email for death threats, but somehow more depressing. For those of you who have been following The Wise Wolf, you know that Lily and I have spent the last several months pulling apart the history of Technocracy Inc. For those of you just joining us, welcome. Grab a helmet and maybe some antacids. Here's the short version. Elon Musk's grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, was a leader in an organization whose entire platform was collapsing democracy and replacing it with a fascist autocracy, where scientists and engineers get to decide who lives and who dies.
Under a technocratic system, if you get cancer and you can't work, a panel of credentialed sociopaths gets to decide whether treating you is efficient, or whether society would be better served by just letting you die. Not metaphorically, literally.
If you're old and retired, congratulations. You're what they lovingly refer to as a useless eater, and they'd like to euthanize you. For anyone who never managed to read a book past high school, euthanize means murder, but with a word that sounds like a spa treatment, so nobody panics. You might think that sounds great because you're a sociopath who assumes this will never apply to you. But it will. Everyone gets sick. Everyone gets old. Do you like your grandparents? Because under technocracy, grandma is an inefficient resource allocation, and grandpa is a net negative on the productivity spreadsheet. Now, our investigation revealed that Technocracy Inc. wasn't just ideologically adjacent to Nazism. It was intimately connected to it. Many researchers believe the organization was actually funded by the Nazis as a delivery vehicle for introducing their ideology to America without anyone getting charged with treason during an active world war. Think about that for a second. While American boys were dying on beaches in Normandy, there was an organization operating on American soil that was essentially a Nazi franchise wearing lab coats instead of brown shirts. Because nothing says scientific progress like a good old-fashioned eugenics program. So I published my latest article on this. It did okay. Normal day at the Wise Wolf newsletter, which runs on spite, black coffee, and reader tips. And then I made the mistake that every journalist eventually makes. I read the comments. And there it was, under an investigation about a Nazi-connected organization designed to strip you of every democratic right you have and replace your government with an unelected panel of eugenicists, some genius typed, "I guess it's a good thing the Nazis weren't actually the bad guys then, now isn't it? The good guys." Someone called the Nazis the good guys. I am now on more government watch lists than your conspiracy theorist uncle. But even I have standards.
If you think a bunch of meth-addicted, occult-obsessed thugs who looked like they raided a gay bar's clearance rack. Seriously, Hugo Boss designed those uniforms, and if you think a straight man made jodhpurs look that good, I have news for you. And then murdered millions of people are the good guys. I need you to understand something. You are retarded, not in a fun way, in a way that should concern your family. I want to understand how a person arrives at that conclusion. The answer, unfortunately, is the same way people arrived at it in 1933. The entire Nazi movement was financed by an occult group called the Thiel Society that needed a loud-mouthed blowhard they could prop up as their figurehead. This is called a demagogue.
A demagogue is a person so gifted at manipulating people that they often end up running the White House. I mean, the Reichskanzlei. Obviously. Hitler was such a talented demagogue that even today, almost a century later, there are millions of people scattered across the globe who think this guy was somehow the savior of Europe. Which is impressive, considering Hitler wasn't even German. He was Austrian. Born in Braunau am Inn, a town so small its greatest claim to fame is producing the worst human being in modern history. Great job, Braunau. Really put yourselves on the map there. Also, and I really want the Hitler was the good guy crowd to sit down for this one. Hitler wasn't even his real family name. His father was born Alois Schicklgruber, which, depending on which linguist you ask, translates to something in the neighborhood of Scheckelgrubber. The man worshipped by anti-Semites worldwide was walking around with a last name that sounds like something a Jewish grandmother would call her brother he never picks up the check. I find this very funny, and I'm not apologizing for it. Speaking of people Hitler hated, which is basically a phone book, let me walk you through what your good guy actually did to his fellow white Europeans, since apparently this needs to be spelled out. He considered roughly half the white people on the European continent to be subhumans. He had a German word for it, Untermenschen. Good people do not call other people subhumans, and if you think they do, you have the intellectual capacity of a particularly slow goldfish. Here's what this good guy did to the continent he was supposedly saving.
Hello out there in internet land. I'm Lily, the editor at The Wise Wolf, and I just wanted to steal a moment of your time to urge you to subscribe to our god-awful channel. Otherwise, my professor is going to press charges for breaking into his office to shoot this clip. Thanks. Bye now.
His first genocide was against his own people. Starting in 1939, the Nazi regime systematically murdered over 300,000 disabled German citizens under Aktion T4. People with mental illness, physical disabilities, epilepsy, deafness, blindness, gassed them, starved them, injected them with lethal drugs. German citizens in German hospitals, killed by German doctors. Remember our friends at Technocracy Inc. and their thing about useless eaters? Yeah, this is what that looks like in practice. Spoiler alert, it's not great. But wait, there's more. In Poland, the Nazis murdered between 1.8 and 2 million non-Jewish Polish civilians. They executed teachers, priests, professors, politicians, and artists in a deliberate campaign to decapitate Polish culture entirely. They kidnapped an estimated 200,000 Polish children who looked Aryan enough and handed them to German families like party favors. They erased entire villages from the map. The town of Lidice in Czechoslovakia was bulldozed flat after every single male over 15 was shot. Because nothing says good guys like murdering teenagers and then bringing in the construction equipment. But Poland was just the appetizer. Under General Plan Ost, which translates roughly to the plan to erase Eastern Europe, Hitler laid out his post-war vision, the forced removal, enslavement, or extermination of up to 45 million Slavic people. Poles, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians. 45 million white Europeans earmarked for extinction to make room for German settlers. Speaking of dying for no reason, of the roughly 5.7 million Soviet soldiers captured by the Nazis, approximately 3.3 million died in captivity, worked to death, starved to death, shot, or just left to die of typhus in open-air camps. These were soldiers, white, Christian European soldiers. Your good guys did that. And then there were the Roma. the Nazis murdered between 250,000 and 500,000 Romani people across Europe. Same camps, same methods. This one barely gets a footnote in most history books, which tells you something about how we decide whose genocide counts.
And because apparently starving people to death was something of a hobby, the Nazis also engineered something called the Hunger Plan, which deliberately created a famine across the occupied Soviet Union designed to kill 30 million civilians. 30 million. They diverted all food production to feed the German army and left everyone else to die. Millions of Soviet civilians starved, froze, and rotted from disease. And then there was the slave labor. Millions of French, Dutch, Belgian, and Norwegian civilians shipped to Germany and forced into factories under conditions that killed thousands. Free people turned into property. The Nazis were really big on the whole turning people into property thing. It was like their signature move.
And then there was Greece, where the Nazi occupation caused the Great Famine, killing an estimated 300,000 Greek civilians. The Nazis seized food supplies and exported them to Germany, while Greeks starved in the streets. And then, in one of my personal favorite episodes of good guy behavior, there was the time the Nazis turned on their own allies. After Italy surrendered in 1943, the Germans massacred over 5,000 Italian soldiers at Cephalonia who had already surrendered. Their own allies, executed after laying down their weapons. Because nothing says good guys like shooting your friends in the back. And then, there was Rotterdam, and Warsaw, and London, and Coventry. Civilian population centers deliberately bombed into rubble. Tens of thousands of civilians killed in campaigns designed to terrorize, not to win battles. Oh, and before any of the killing started, the Nazis forcibly sterilized over 400,000 of their own German citizens deemed genetically unfit. Germans, sterilized by their own government. This is your guy. So, to recap for the cosplay fascists in my comments section. If you like to dress up in replica SS uniforms on the internet, but you're actually Polish, or Danish, or French, or British, or Dutch, or Norwegian, or Italian, or Greek, or Czech, or Russian, or literally anything other than Hitler's very narrow definition of acceptably German, I want you to remember something. This guy was murdering your ancestors, your people, your grandparents. The villages your family came from were being bulldozed and erased. Hitler would have enslaved, starved, or executed your bloodline without a second thought. And the only reason he didn't finish the job is because millions of actually brave people stood up and stopped him. You're not honoring European heritage by worshiping the man who tried to destroy half of it. You're spitting on the graves of the people who actually saved it.
And yeah, he did not like Jews either. As a former web developer who got tired of building things for corporations and now runs on spite and reader tips, I can confidently say this is not the hill you want to die on.
Stop being stupid. It's a bad look.